welcome to the Melancholy Guy Talks Recovery, Living with Addiction. This is a companion podcast to my life, the Melancholy Guy, daring to be black, open, and free. The adventures of a divorced, open, polyamorous, African-American male living in recovery. I am the Melancholy Guy, Calvin, or CPJR if you know me. And today I definitely believe that change I must or die I will. My blog can be found at melancholyguy.tumblr.com. So let's get it popping. Today in episode 40, we're talking about going back to the beginning. This is going to be part one. So I want to do one thing that I didn't do last time that I wanted to do. Since starting the podcast back up, I went back into all the old spaces and found some interesting things about what's been happening with the podcast. The podcast is posted on Spotify, iHeart, Stitcher, Spreaker, of course, and it's also on Apple Podcasts. And I went through to my Apple Podcast account and to do some updating of the graphics and whatnot, and I found out that I had a review. I had a 5-star review back from 6/15/2018, and I wanted to read the review because it's a 5-star review, and it seems to be the tradition from other podcasters when they get a 5-star review that they read the review on the podcast. And this review came from I'll say on 6/15/2018. Actually, it came from when I started doing, I was still doing ethical non-monogamy, and I think it was from the first interview show that I did with Kim. So this is from Texan Cali Girl on 6/15/2018, and she wrote, "Great job. Started with the episode about your personal journey. Very interesting. I'm excited to hear your interview with multiple folks as well. I like moving away from reading the blogs. The organic back and forth that came up from y'all's convo was more interesting part of the podcast for me." And thank you for that, Texan Cali Girl. I think I know who that is. Thank you for that, though, but I appreciate it. And actually, I did enjoy doing the interviews a lot, and I wish I had kept up with it and kept going in that direction, because it really kept me engaged with the community. It kept me in the center of things, looking for interviews and looking for people to talk to. And I did like the format of talking about the 3 questions. What do you call your ethical non-monogamy? How did you come to the name? How did you come to that name, conclusion, or description? And what does that look like in your life today? And I hope to be able to get back to that. Like I say, for me, this journey is intersectional. My ethical non-monogamy and my addiction, I think that's where I am. I mean, those are 2 areas in my life since leaving Christianity, which was my community then, that are very important to me. And not my addiction, but I should say my recovery is important to me. So back to the show where we're on now. We're talking about recovery, living with addiction. And in the first show, I talked about how what's been going on in my life. I talked about my addiction. Today is day 16 for me. I'm still, hanging in there. I'm still, as they say, clean. I went to my first meeting today. As you know, a lot of people in recovery go to meetings. And actually, I went to an online NA meeting. It was online video. It was pretty good. It was like 80 people in attendance online. I think I'm going to go to that again. The reason that I like going to meetings is I like keeping it raw and real. Like you see people going through real life in recovery. People going through like can have 2 or 3 years sober, clean, or whatever, and still be going through all those emotions. If you remember last time I said I read an article and it stated that relapse comes from what? Addicts will relapse for one and one reason only, to change the way he or she feels. And it's a feelings disease, basically. Once you get that, like I said, that switch tripped in your head, and you become an addict, and then the problems come, you've already, have had these issues that you're using drugs or alcohol. Alcohol is a drug to mask or compensate or use as a crutch. But this one drug, your drug of choice, just keeps dragging you back and making things worse and worse and worse. So when you actually do decide to quit, abstain, and then go into recovery, those same feelings are there. And you have to learn how to cope with those feelings without the use, of your drug. And that's tough. But it's also about the, cravings, relapse prevention, and stuff like that. So in the few minutes that I have left, because I got some new segments I want to add to the show, and remember, if you want to support the show, there is a Patreon. It's in the link. And the show notes is in the link on my Instagram. If you want to support, it's cool. If not, it's cool. I'm going to do it myself, as I always do. This is for me more than it is for you, anybody else that can get any help out of it. So basically what I want to do is like not do a drug log, as they say, but I want to go back and talk about, for me, like the beginning, like where it's all began, my relationship with substances. So basically, I was thinking about this. I'm not sure if I said this in the show last week or not. I remember my first hit of my drug of choice, crack cocaine. I remember that first time. I do not remember the first time of any other substance, alcohol, marijuana, or PCP. And those three things started back when I was young. I started alcohol at I want to say the junior high or high school. I had an event where I would sneak into my parents' bar, and I would drink, the liquor. And then one day I drank too much and threw up all over their bed. And that was my first time of going too far. And then from that point, I went into some type of group therapy session with some other kids that were having problems. We sat through there for, I think it was once a week. A lot of things. For me, I still remember some of the things we talked about in that group, but I can't remember my age. It had to be like I said, junior high school. It wasn't high school. So anyway, after that incident, I think the alcohol in the house was locked up, and that was it. I didn't drink anymore from that point on until I think high school. And I want to say that I didn't pick up anything in high school until, in my high school, probably like up here around in this area where I live, marijuana was big. Everybody, I can't say that. So I'm going to say this. When I was in high school, I was uncomfortable in high school. My upbringing was in a different area. Actually, when I started school, in my formative years, I was in an all-white school in Virginia. And then we transferred to a school in this area in Maryland, and it was a mixture school. So I was dealing with a lot of different things, and I wasn't accustomed to it. So for me, all through school, me trying to adapt to this new culture, I went to marijuana as a crutch. And I think we're going to pick up there. I picked up marijuana as a crutch, and marijuana was my coping mechanism through school. It was definitely for anxiety. I used it to loosen up to meet people. And I really, delved into that subculture. I was definitely a pothead, but I was still very smart. I still maintained my grades. I graduated at 3.5. But I definitely used marijuana as a crutch, but it didn't. It wasn't. It wasn't a problem. It was just part of my life. So I definitely probably did stunt me in some ways, but it wasn't like I was out using all my money, because I used to go to work, save my money, everything like that. But I would always have marijuana around me at all times, and then I think from in high school we had what's called PCP. We called it Love Boat. I did smoke some of that too. It was just that wasn't a serious thing for me. It was just off and on thing when it was in the party. But like I said, I never had any serious incidents with it. Never had any locked up, jail time, none of that. It was just part of our culture here, around here, to do that. Going to the go-go's, going to see the bands, going out. You would smoke joints. Everybody would have weed, and everybody would get high, and that was it. There wasn't any cocaine at that time or any crack at that time. It was just everybody pretty much just did weed, drank, and did some what's called Love Boat, and it was pretty cool. In my circle, it wasn't bad. Nobody had any issues. Nobody had any issues until I got to college, and I'm gonna talk about that. And I'm gonna pick up there next from the next episode. I'm gonna pick up from where I went through high school, and I'm gonna talk about some more of it, some of my early use on the next episode. But I do want to say that I do want to take a second to remember the addicts that are still out suffering. I know it's tough. I hope that if you're listening to this and you hear this, you can't get help. And now I'm getting emotional. You can't get help. You can't stop. And like they always say in the room, you never have to use again, one day at a time. So I thank you for listening. I will be back, like I said, later this week with my second show. We'll pick up where I left off. And thank you for listening. And always remember to respect and love yourself first, and everything else will take care of itself. Peace and namaste.